Hi everyone, I'm Ian. This is Mission Movement. We're coming at you today from Mongoose CrossFit in Okinawa, Japan, and we're about to answer, is CrossFit actually that dangerous? So we field a lot of different questions from friends, family, and clients. A lot of them pertain to what we do working with CrossFitters. A lot of the questions sum up to, is CrossFit actually that dangerous? My answer is a little nuanced, and I would just say it depends. The truth is, any activity has some degree of risk, no matter what you're doing. CrossFit, it would seem, has a higher risk than most other activities because people are moving heavy weights, they're going really fast, and frankly, a lot of the times on social media, you see questionable form. So I could see why, of course, it looks dangerous, especially to people like physical therapists, doctors, chiropractors, who may or may not have experienced CrossFit firsthand. In fact, one of the old tropes is that CrossFit is good for business because the more people do CrossFit, the more people get hurt, then they end up at the PT or the chiro or the doctor's office. In 2017, Montalvo and Associates and Moran and Associates both released studies citing injury rates ranging from 2.1 to 3.1 injuries per 1,000 hours of CrossFit training. That's not that much. Athletes who compete in CrossFit were more likely to sustain injuries, probably because of increased intensity and higher volume of training than most average individuals. Also, those with large body masses, so those who might be overweight or extremely muscle-bound, lots of muscle mass, were more likely to suffer rates, as well as people who were taller than average. So these findings would say that CrossFit isn't any more dangerous than sports like running or Olympic weightlifting. So is it really dangerous? Probably not. Now, these studies weren't perfect. They relied on surveys, which is self-reported data. Self-reported data isn't necessarily held as very reliable. However, it is a similar information gathering technique that many other studies have done for different sports. So while the stats may not be 100% accurate, true to life, they are accurate compared to a lot of other reporting techniques for other sports when they're tracking injury rates. So one way to look at your overall training risk factors in CrossFit is to calculate your acute to chronic workload ratio. For now, don't worry about the math or what even that is. Just understand we will have a more in-depth post on it coming later at some point. Essentially, it's a mathematical way of figuring out if you're pushing your limits a little too much. Okay? Another way to look at whether or not you're in a risky zone is to understand that there's simply a ceiling, a cap to how much volume of work your body can handle before it's able to recover from that work. Okay? Some people refer to that as a maximum recoverable volume. Over time, you can enhance your maximum recoverable volume through work capacity training, which is exactly what CrossFit is there for, to build up your work capacity. That's going to increase your resilience, but it takes time. Unfortunately, some people just push a little too hard, especially right out of the gate, especially if they have a previous history of being athletic or playing sports. They tend to push a little bit harder than the average Joe, and that might lead them into trouble, again, spiking their volume of exercise too soon. At Mission Movement, we focus a lot on what we call movement competency, and that might be correcting muscle imbalances, improving posture, enhancing mobility restrictions or reducing mobility restrictions as the case may be, ultimately trying to get you to move better so that while you're exercising, you're safer. These are all sound strategies, and we've had great success with our clients working on things like this, but ultimately, even if you have a very minor or even if you have a very major movement impairment or muscle imbalance, as long as you don't pour an excessive amount of volume on that, you may be able to train around that issue for a very long time without having a major injury from it. So once again, it's not necessarily poor movement alone that causes the likelihood of an injury. That's possible, of course. More probable, though, is pouring too much volume onto a poorly moving structure, body part, individual, whatever, and then expecting that person to perform at a very high level. Many gyms program high volume days. I know at many of the gyms that I've coached at and trained at, the workout consisted of like a strength or a skill portion with or without mobility before or after that, and then certainly like a Metcon or a conditioning workout right after that within that 1 hour period of time. If you look at the CrossFit headquarters main site, they will go through different types of workouts. Sometimes it's a strength-based workout, sometimes it's a conditioning type workout, and there's a lot of variation in their structure and their programming. That is the quote design of CrossFit, and a lot of gyms have taken liberty to go above and beyond adding extra volume. Now you have newcomers or people whose work capacity and resiliency isn't built up going to these gyms and all of a sudden getting a massive spike in their work volume and intensity over a very short period of time, and then they're sitting there wondering, scratching their heads, why is my shoulder hurt? Why does my back hurt? And it makes perfect sense if you look at from a more mathematical standpoint. So bottom line, CrossFit isn't inherently dangerous, at least not any more dangerous than most other recreational sports like running, okay? CrossFit can be dangerous given nuance, and unfortunately I would love to tell you that it's because of poor movement and ugly form, and those play a factor, but really the biggest culprit is volume, excessive volume in too short a period of time. Our greatest success at Mission Movement has been working with athletes and yes, working through those movement impairments, making sure you are mobile where you need to be and strong wherever else you need to be, and being able to do the functional movements that you're trying to do at a CrossFit workout or in your daily life, but also making sure that we're educating our people on how to track their volume and make sure that they're not overdoing it too much. Again, the base of CrossFit is trying to build work capacity, but too much of a good thing and too little of a time is going to end up biting you in the ass.